We have none other than Mr. Media, Mr. 1859, Cliff Compton. Cliff, welcome. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
All right. So I don't know how many of you have been watching TV lately, but you may have seen that Cliff here was on a KFC commercial with none other than Colt Cabana. So how did that happen? I'm just very curious. It was a great commercial, but I just wanted to know how that came to be.
Pretty simple, actually. Colt Cabana is the ultimate hustler, and he does a lot of stuff outside of wrestling, whether it's his comedy stuff, and he does some small acting roles. He was in an Old Navy commercial, and he called me and he said, "Hey, do you want to do this KFC thing?" And I was like, "Sure." So I flew to Chicago, and we banged it out in a day. It took 12 hours to film, and they created a minute and 20 seconds out of it. But yeah, that was it. It was that simple. And KFC was expecting it to be pretty successful, but it exceeded everything they ever expected. So we might be doing another one. I don't know.
Now, do you and Colt now get free KFC for life, or how does that work?
No, we didn't. That wasn't part of the negotiations. Colt had to take a bite of the chicken finger about probably 200 times during that day. So I think the last thing he wanted was unlimited KFC, and but no, I don't. I'm not a big KFC guy. I mean, I eat it, but not often. But they're everywhere. So, but no, it was a lot of fun, and a lot of people got a kick out of it, and I thought it did a great job.
No, it was great. It's awesome just to see you guys out there and doing your thing. So if you haven't seen it, definitely go on. I know it's on your website, but just YouTube KFC with Colt and Cliff. It's pretty amazing.
KFC arm wrestling.
Yes. So obviously you're in with all the wrestlers. You yourself are a wrestler. This week we got big news that Kevin Steen has signed to the WWE now. You've done there's a new DVD out with Cliff Compton and Kevin Steen. What are your thoughts about Kevin Steen? Are you excited for him, or what do you think about this?
Kevin is a good friend of mine. I've known him for years. I worked with him in Ring of Honor all year up until, I don't know, June or something. And he's as good as it gets. He's solid. He's a guy who was a very successful independent wrestler. And, I knew he had the it factor, and you just know with some guys, you know what I mean? And, with Kevin, he was very good at what he does. Now that he's going to this whole new NXT world, it's going to be a new adventure for him, but he'll be fine. I think he'll be and I definitely think he's an asset to the company. It's just a matter of how they use him. So,
now
he's good. He's very good.
Do you want to take a guess on what they're going to change his name to? I recently talked to him, and I asked him if it would be Staniel Keen, but he didn't answer. He
told me a few names that were on the list. Some of them I kind of cringed at, and some of them I said not bad. That's just that's my security system. Some of them, that's just what they do. They have to trademark it, and it's all about licensing and all that. So, unfortunately, he can't use Kevin Steen, but it happens to everybody. It used to be different. It used to be they would let you use your real name, but they would let you use your name that you came in with from the indies, But nowadays, with they're basically trademarking you, and they own you. They own your likeness.
Yes.
So just say they change his name to Joe Smith. They'll own that name, and they'll own that likeness, and from a business standpoint, it makes 100% and it makes total sense.
Yeah. Now I don't think I'm in the minority, but I definitely thought that Deuce and Domino were an amazing tag team. I mean, you guys even won the Mecca. You won the tag team championships. Believe it or not, we just talked to Romeo Roselli the other day, and we were talking about, and I think that you guys were in the same boat as them. The Heartthrobs came in around, they were a little earlier than you guys, but, you're all in the same system coming up at about the same time. And he said that he thinks they suffered because, they didn't really have any vignettes. They didn't really get that push that, the monster that, pushing them. And, I remember you guys similar, like not really having much of a push, just kind of getting thrown out into the deep end. And, do you think that was a big part of it, or do you think that people just didn't really get the whole concept of Deuce and Domino?
A few things. Deuce and Domino was a huge hit in OVW.
The Untouchables?
Yeah, for a year and a half we ran strong, and it was much different than what you saw on WWE. It was much more edgy. It was much more, street gang outsider oriented. And originally when WWE came to us and said, all right, and we did a month or so in the house shows. That's just the way it works. But they were going to do vignettes. They were going to do 6 vignettes, and they were going to film them at Six Flags here in Louisville, Kentucky. And very elaborate. And it was going to cost a lot of money because Six Flags was closed. It was in the winter. So they needed a tremendous amount of extras and all that. And they had everything ready to go, and then they pulled the plug at the last second because Vince McMahon wanted to be there because it was pretty elaborate thing, and he was called off to some sort of, business meeting or something. But so no, we did not do vignettes, and we debuted what they call cold, which is just they throw you out there, and there's a lot of pressure on you to deliver. And they loved the debut, and they loved everything else. I can understand the Heartthrobs. They were in the same position. If I remember correctly, they debuted in Madison Square Garden, but it's a lot different now. You got to remember when Deuce and Domino debuted on SmackDown, it was still a separate brand. I mean, different set, different ring, different referees, and we were put on the main roster with some of the biggest superstars you can think of. I mean, The Undertaker was still full-time. Batista was still full-time. Ric Flair was full-time. Edge, Rey Mysterio, Khali was getting a monster push, and they had their fair share of tag teams. And the Heartthrobs were put on Raw, which was even more stacked. So, I don't want to say it's easier now to get yourself known and over with the audience, but it kind of is, So, we were thrown right into the mix with a who's who of superstars. And I'm trying to make excuses, but Deuce and Domino, no matter what anyone says or thinks, was a very successful team. Vince loved it. Everything we put out from a merchandise standpoint made money. The song was a #1 hit on iTunes. So, for what it was, I'm proud of it. They definitely tweaked it from what I created. They made it more of a happy-go-lucky grease guys, and but once they gave us a little bit of character development, people started to get more into it because they could understand what it was. I've always liked gimmicks in wrestling. I think more people like it now than they did back then. But it is what it is. But I just think I thought we did very well for ourselves considering who we were out there with. It's a whole different world now in WWE. So I think if you're a new guy debuting, sky's the limit because they're just dying for new stars.
Now, I'm kind of hoping that this doesn't happen, but I don't know how familiar you are with, if you watch NXT or anything like that, but there's the new tag team that's the Vaudevillains, and it's Simon Gotch and Aiden English, and they're more of a throwback, if you will. So I love them, and I'm like you in the sense that I do like gimmicks, and I hope that this doesn't, they don't have a similar fate where they just kind of get thrown out there. But that's what's good about NXT, I guess, is that you kind of become a star there, and then you move to WWE where everybody's already watching you.
Sure. The WWE loves gimmicks. They'll straight up tell you it's entertainment. It's not pro wrestling. So, if you get angry when WWE debuts a gimmick, well, that's just stupid because, they're entertainment. Whether you like it or not, they're going to always, they'll say, okay, Deuce N Domino, people will look at them and they can relate to them just because look at the way they're dressed, but the people can't relate to a guy in boots and tights and knee pads with a headlock. That's the way they think, they're entertainment, it's not, and I know a lot of wrestling fans hate that, but that's what they are. So you kind of have to just go with it. So, I don't know. NXT is so much different than the developmental system I was in. Now it's on a network and people can watch it and know who you are. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Because people might already make up their minds seeing you in NXT. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
And in OVW, we were on the WB station here, which was around the entire state of Kentucky, but that was it. And this is prior to, stuff wasn't all over the internet and all that. So no one really knew who was in the developmental system except for if you really knew what was going on. And, OVW was very cutthroat. Everyone was fighting for a spot, and there were very limited spots in the WWE roster. Because, like I said, SmackDown was loaded. Then WoW was still there. I mean, it was a who's who. And then, so to get on the actual roster was a huge accomplishment. But now it's all changed. So who knows? Kevin Steen is very smart with the way he marketed himself. With his YouTube escalades and all that stuff, and the Kevin Steen show, and he was very smart. If I had those tools maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I definitely would have used them too. But when I was around, we just had, I think MySpace was the only thing around, and that creeped me out. So, but no, he's very well known on the indie scene, and he's wrestled around the world. But the majority of the WWE audience doesn't follow independent wrestling, so he's pretty much got a clean slate, which is great. And I wish him the world. I wish him nothing but the best. It's kind of strange, they signed him, and he'll probably stay in that system for a lot longer than anyone wants him to, but, it is what it is. You can't fight City Hall, so he'll just do his time there, and hopefully he'll move up, But there's some guys who've gone there that I thought were, a no-brainer, and they're not even there anymore, so.
I mean, that happened with Hero, obviously.
Yes. Everybody's different. Some people don't get along with management. Some people are not good at yesing people. You know what I mean? I thought Chris Hero was a tremendous, asset for them. I was shocked when, they decided to part ways with him. But, it's the wrestling business. It's not a soft business. It's a hard business. It really is.
Now, you've mentioned, we've talked about it a little bit too, but OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling, for anybody who isn't familiar with what we're talking about, and that was based out of Louisville, Kentucky. Lots of huge stars came from there. I mean, it was really a who's who. You want to talk about anybody that's been a star in the last 10 years, they came from OVW. You've got Orton, Batista, Cena, you guys, Cliff Compton was there. Punk came through the ranks there. Now that we have the WWE, Brock Lesnar, I mean, it's unbelievable. I'm from the Midwest originally, so I got to see a lot of OVW shows, and they were I think that they were just as good, if not better than what you have NXT on the network now. But
when they had, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
When they had Paul Heyman writing for about maybe 8 months or a year, then that show was just as good as SmackDown. It was an hour, but that was, you got a really good 1 hour wrestling show. When Punk was there, and so many guys, and a lot of guys who never made it out. That baffled me, but that happens. It happens. But yeah, if you go on ovwrestling.com and just click on alumni, so who's who? John Morrison, you name it, Carlito, all those guys.
My question: do you think that WWE should put all the OVW on the network? And I'm not for sure if they own the library or the part that they owned up until new management took over, or.
Yeah, they bought the library off Danny Davis, which was up until they parted ways, because Danny had everything. He had all of John Cena's early stuff. He has all of Randy Orton's early stuff, Brock, but he has everybody. You name it, he has them from 2000 to when did they leave? 08 or 09 maybe. So they have a huge chunk of that library. Some of it was featured on the CM Punk DVD.
Yes.
Brent Albright matches. It was just, it reminded me of an old territory OVW, which is still up and running today. It's just, they don't have the caliber of talent that they did. I mean, they had everybody. Matt Morgan was there. I mean, you name it. I mean, it was 40 of the best wrestlers in the world.
What was great too is that a lot of times, and like I said, if you're not familiar with OVW, you probably wouldn't know this, but they sent a lot of famed WWE talent down there to help out. Like I remember, Kane would be down there, Mark Henry would be down there, and that was a regular occurrence. And once again, I think that they're trying to kind of mimic what they're doing with NXT after what they did with OVW. I mean, it's.
Yeah, OVW, then they had Deep South Wrestling, which was a carbon copy of OVW, and that they stopped that one for whatever reasons, and they had FCW, which was another carbon copy of OVW. Now NXT is a lot different. It's much more high-end, and a lot more money's gone into it, but at the end of the day, it's just, the original combination of Rip Rogers, Jim Cornette, and Danny Davis was, I would say, the best formula to make a feature star. And Jim Ross was head of talent relations. This is even before I got there. And they were, they would actually recruit guys like Brock and Randy and John. And, it was just, Nick Dinsmore was part of that early era. The Bashams, Rob Conway. It was just, it was a different time, And the office wasn't so involved as they are. Mm-hmm. Like right now in NXT, the office is heavily involved, which it might be good, might be bad, I don't know. But in OVW was, the office was definitely, they came down, but just not as much.
Now, you've went from the Monster Factory to OVW to WWE. Do you think that people coming up, since we're talking about NXT, do you think that they're going to be as well-rounded? Because I don't feel like that they're out. I mean, like Kevin Steen, like this group that are coming through right now, I feel like are the last of a dying breed. I don't think that people are out there as long anymore as you guys were. You started and you didn't get a guaranteed contract or anything like that. So do you think that that's going to hurt them, or do you? I mean, I just don't know if that's it's going to be different, obviously, but I think that you guys personally probably had an advantage because you had to fight and scrape and claw to get everything you got.
Sure. There's definitely guys out there who've been working 9, 10, 12 years who are definitely worthy and good enough to be in the WWE, because that's pretty much everybody's goal nowadays, is to get to WWE. Kevin had been working probably 10 years, 11 years. But no, my experience, when they just would sign a guy who was an ex-football player and had no wrestling experience, they didn't last, because they didn't, number one, they didn't like it really. They liked the money, but they didn't like it because it hurts. They hired bodybuilders and they didn't like it. They hired fitness models, girls, Playboy models, and some of them worked out and some of them didn't. But I think at the end of the day, the guys who want to be pro wrestlers are going to be the guys who are most successful.
So, if I'm going to just go ahead and plug this for you, and you don't even have to say a word, I highly advise anybody who's a fan of professional wrestling to go out and buy the Wrestling Road Diaries 2 on DVD. I think you can get it on coltmerch.com, and I think probably that's about the only place you can get it right now. But Fantastic movie. Shows the life of, Colt Cabana, Luke Gallows, and Cliff Compton on the road, and they go all across America, hitting up, independent wrestling events, and you see some real emotion there. You see Luke Gallows. I don't want to spoil it, but you see Luke Gallows is fighting an injury. Are there any stories that you can tell us that didn't make it to the DVD that are ridiculous?
Well, there's a bonus disc that I didn't even know existed that someone told me there's a lot of stories on there. No, that came out really good. Colt approached me, man, about 3 months before we started doing it, and then I told him I thought the only other guy that I thought we'd all mesh because we were all good friends with was Gallows, and we filmed it, and Colt had a vision, and he actually had a really good, well-known documentary guy film it. And it just all came together, and the guy had so much footage. I was really curious to see how it came to, and then we were in Chicago doing some comedy thing with Colt, and I saw Jack, who was the guy who filmed it, and he had the final copy. I couldn't believe it, and I'd seen trailers and whatnot, but then, I saw it, and I said, man, this came out a lot better than I thought it would, and we debuted it at WrestleCon at WrestleMania, and it's been selling like crack ever since. But I don't know. There's a lot of stories from that movie. There's a lot of craziness going on.
Yeah, I didn't realize that Luke could do such a good Howard Finkel impersonation, which is...
He can do it all. He's... I just spoke to him yesterday. He's here in the States, but then it's back to Japan and Bullet Club. Yeah, he can do a lot of voices. He's multi-talented.
Do you, since we're talking about movies now, and I've listened to several of the podcasts you've done, and you are a pretty well-known movie buff. Do you have any favorite movies?
I have a lot of favorite movies. Probably too many to name. My favorite movie of all time is probably Back to the Future. That's one of my favorites. But then I like stuff like The Godfather. Casino was on today. I watch everything. There's probably not a movie I won't watch. I have tons of favorites, but I don't know. The newer stuff that comes out in the theaters, it's got to really catch my eye for me to go see it. But I guess I kind of like older movies.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess another good question about the keeping with the Wrestling Road Diaries is if you had the chance to do your own, do you think you would have picked Colt and Luke, or do you think you would have picked, two other people to go out on the road with?
It's definitely got to be people you're legitimately friends with, and the three of us are legit friends. Even if we weren't wrestling, we'd be friends. So I think that's why it worked so well. I don't know if there'll be another one. I don't know if Colt's going to do another one. I thought Kevin Steen would have been good in it. But Colt likes to put his friends in it. He doesn't want to put a guy in there he doesn't really know, because that'd be kind of weird.
Yeah.
So no, I don't know. I guess I'd probably pick the same guys.
Yeah.
Maybe. Who knows? Definitely people and you can fuck around with.
Yeah, one of the best parts of the movie I thought was when you were talking to Tex.
Yes.
Oh my God! And I saw, at the very end. I don't want to spoil it once again, but God rest his soul. But
yes.
That was.
It was crazy because that town was so small, and you can't really tell how small it was on camera. But that town was tiny, and we were actually looking what we thought was a tanning salon, but it was abandoned. And I turned around and I said, man, there's a guy on a tractor. And, of course, he turns out to be 99 or 98 years old. And, we just started talking to him. And, it was just one of those moments in the movie that, you just come across this wackiness when you travel around the world. And that's the point of the Wrestling Road Diaries, is to show you, what happens going from town to town. So, yeah, Tex has like a little bit of a cult following, but, I remember Jack sent me these emails about, because he was very well known in that town, and, sadly, he's not with us anymore. And we're going to dedicate the movie to him, but, he was very well known in that town, and it's just cool because, you know, that's the kind of stuff you come across when you go to these obscure towns. You meet some of the craziest people, and you meet some of the nicest people, and, you know, sometimes you never know what's going to happen.
It's interesting to see that, you know, I have stories. I've been a fan for years or whatever, but I can always say, hey, I talked to this person or I shook hands with that person. But to hear, you know, you guys actually say, you know, that person changed your life or you're going to think about them, it changes the whole dynamic. And I think it, you know, like I said, this movie doesn't necessarily feel like it just feels more human, I guess, is the best way to put it. So definitely go out and see it. And in the movie, you were talking that now you go to these towns and you almost feel like the I'll say grizzled old vet, because that's something you need to know also. But you're training guys, you're telling them what they can do better and how they can help the profession that you made a name in. With that being said, is there anybody out there on the independent scene that you haven't worked with that you'd like to work with? Or, I mean, once again, you travel all over, so I'm sure that there's a lot of people, but...
Somebody asked me this last week. I've almost been in the ring with just about everybody, which is crazy. Even, I mean, I guess the people I hadn't been in the ring with were in Ring of Honor, and I did a lot of their shows, and I wound up working with guys like Lethal and Elegant and the Briscoes and Jimmy Jacobs and Steen, obviously. But, I mean, there's, you know, one person I always wanted to work with was Steen, and I accomplished that. I'd like to do something with, there's been so many times where I was supposed to work with Tommy Dreamer,
yes,
who's been a friend of mine forever. And we're supposed to work at WrestleCon, and something happened. So he's probably one of the last. Him or Samoa Joe are two guys I'd probably want to do something with.
So,
you know, before I hang it up.
Yeah, you should. And obviously, you talk to him more than I would. But I've went to 2 of his House of Hardcore shows that he's had up here. I'm in the Northeast now, so
yeah.
And they've been, you know, wildly successful. And you know, I think you would definitely be a good fit for House of Hardcore. So I'm going to start a petition to get you at House of Hardcore.
Well, it's a work in progress, but because I'm in Louisville now, so, you know, Tommy's a very smart guy. You know, he's a very smart guy, so it's just a matter of the right time, business, and all that. So
absolutely,
I'm sure it'll happen.
Yeah, and we got just a few more questions for you. I know you're a busy guy. If you're, you know, speaking of the bigger, you know, the top 2, I guess, right now, WWE and TNA, is there any person that you really like right now? A lot of people that we ask this question, they're huge on Bray Wyatt. And is there anybody that you see a bright future for?
I think right now there's a tremendous opportunity to step up and be a star because WWE is dying for new stars. You know, they're dying, and you know, some guys they're pushing down the audience's throats, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad. But no, I don't watch that much anymore. I do like the Wyatt guy because he's a gimmick, and I like how he has that little lantern and he sings and all that stuff. You know, I guess the Shield guys. I mean, they seem to be the guys that everyone thinks are going to be the future. I don't know. It usually turns out to be someone you never think it will be.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, nobody thought Steve Austin was going to blow up and be Stone Cold. No one thought Rocky Maivia was going to become The Rock. You know, CM Punk, nobody thought was going to do anything. And look what happens, you know. So I'll be curious to see, or maybe it won't happen. But no, I mean, there's definitely talented guys there. I thought Zack Ryder, he's not just because he's one of my longtime friends, really, to wrestle him when he was a Major brother, but I thought he was a can't miss, and, you know, he kind of has faded out. And, you know, Dolph Ziggler, I thought, was another can't miss. You know, there's a lot of shit that goes on that nobody knows about, you know, politics and all that stuff. So they have talented guys. It's just a matter of behind the scenes, who they want to use, who they want to push. You know, there's so much more that goes into it than people realize.
Yeah, absolutely. My final question before we can find out what else, where everybody can get a hold of you is, what is the best thing that's ever happened to you because you're a pro wrestler?
There's a lot of things.
I mean, feel free. You can say whatever you want. I just want to throw that out there.
Free stuff. Women, beautiful women. You know, professionally, obviously, you know, overseas we were much more popular. We were almost always babyfaces overseas, which blew my mind. But you know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Too much to tell probably. But I think the best times I had, and a lot of people will tell you this, were in developmentally and in OVW, because we were doing 4 shows a week, and it was just the camaraderie and the quality of the shows was so good. And then, of course, there was the partying. So, you know, it was just out of control. You know, Miz was here. We would have this shit called Miz Fest. We'd go out to downtown Louisville to all the bars, and we'd run up these tabs of $8,000-$10,000 at some of these bars, and the guys would comp them out. We wouldn't have to pay for a thing. So we were like the kings down there, you know what I mean? So yes. Stuff like that, you know, a lot of stuff that would get me in a lot of trouble today, but, you know.
Well, we definitely get the gist. That's great. So definitely you came on here. I just want to tell the story that, you know, if you are a fan of wrestling, you should definitely look up Cliff Compton, check out any of his stuff. I know that you are on Twitter, you're on Facebook. Could you just give us any where people can find you?
Twitter's the best place, at Cliff Compton. Or you can go on Facebook, cliffcompton.net. That's my verified page, because everyone always asks, is that you? Is that you? So that's me. So, and I'll answer. A lot of people don't like to answer the fans, but people ask me questions all the time. I can't get to them all, but I'll try to reply to some of them, and I'll retweet you if you really want me to. I don't have much, you know, some guys, they take Twitter way too seriously.
Yes.
This is for fun, you know.
Is there any place, I could tell them, but I'll have you do it. Is there any place that they can get, if they're really wanting some Cliff merchandise, where can they get that?
Yeah, I'm one of the top sellers at ProWrestlingTees.com. So you go to ProWrestlingTees.com/Cliff Compton, or just go to ProWrestlingTees.com and click on me. Last month, the top sellers were the Young Bucks, myself, and Kevin Steen. And the month before that, I was in the top 3 again, and the month before that I was. And keep in mind, this website has WWE Hall of Famers, WWE legends, and everybody and anybody else who's involved with wrestling. So that's pretty cool, you know, that the fans are, I tell everyone there's been a giant resurgence in independent wrestling. There's a lot of the people don't like what they see on Monday nights. I'm just telling you what I hear.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I'll be at a show, a very small show. Some are a little bigger, some are a little smaller, and they'll say, I hate that stuff on Monday nights. I just want to watch wrestling. That's why I come here. I say, hey, whatever you're into. Whatever you're into.
Well, and, you know, the independent is definitely a good outlet for those of you that do not like it, but I highly suggest going around. I saw that you'll be in Cleveland soon as well, I think.
Yes, for AIW. The first weekend in September, huge. I'll be there 2 days. It's 3 days. They're going to have everybody. Cabana will be there. Michael Elgin will be there. Tracy Smothers will be there. You got Eddie Kingston. Some very beautiful girls. I just can't think of their names.
I saw Abyss, I think, is going to be there as well.
Yes, Abyss will be there. But if you want to go to all 3 nights, it's only $50. Just go to, I guess, AIW Wrestling, their website, and you can buy tickets in advance, or you can go to the door. But it's going to be packed. That place is a madhouse, but it'll be a lot of fun. I'll be there. Cabana will be there, and we're just going to, I don't know. Everyone thinks I'm going to start a riot, so we'll see what happens.
And lastly, I wouldn't be doing due diligence for my job if I didn't ask this. My last question for Cliff Compton is, do you surf?
Do I surf? No. Have you seen the T-shirt? But that's a question I get everywhere.
Okay, well...
It's a clever T-shirt. I'm never going to reveal the meaning behind it, because then it would kill it. But that has been I think that's my best-selling T-shirt. That and Death Proof. So, but yeah, no, comes in 5 colors.
Well, I will definitely let everybody know that's one a week. So that's for your work week. You can wear a different Cliffy Don't Surf every day of the week.
Front and back.
Yeah, well, I would definitely thank you very much for joining us on another wrestling podcast. We'd like to have you back anytime that you'd like. And
Sure.
And check out all of his stuff at Cliff Compton, cliffcompton.net. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you.